Diaspora Vibe Cultural Arts Incubator, Equal Justice Thematic International Residency, Vermont Studio Center, Project Art, and Art Center South Florida. Rosa Naday Garmendia is also a teaching artist at the Perez Art Museum in Miami. The work of Rosa Naday Garmendia is rooted in social issues and encourages reflection, interaction, and engagement. Inspired by an ongoing series of works that started in 2014, the exhibition Not So Far Away, No Tan Lejos reflects upon the displacement from culture, home, and family, human communication, belief systems, and notions of history. So first, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Megan, and the entire team.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to talk about this work with you.
Yeah, what a pleasure to have you with us. Your work is socially engaged, often politically inspired. Do you consider yourself an activist first and foremost? If you'd speak a little bit about that, and how you think your artwork coincides with activism.
Well, you know, Megan, I think it's difficult to be Cuban, whether it's in the island or in Miami, and not be political. It's sort of part of our DNA. So for a long time, I've been active in different issues, but it wasn't until 2014 that I decided to merge my artistic practice with my activism. And it was a result of the death of Michael Brown. So from then on, the work that I do is very much about social issues, and I'm an activist at the same time.
Okay, okay. So we see some images here. So this, like, I'd love to look at that one picture, if we go back for a second, but so were you doing things that I see Black Lives Matters, and then some things that are Cuban relation tied? I mean, it's something that I'm just starting to, learn more about since I've moved here in the past year. And so maybe you could speak a little bit more about some of the things that are down here in terms of the activism that you've done.
Some of the photographs there reflect, the relations between the United States and Cuba is sort of like a roller coaster. So sometimes we can travel, sometimes we cannot travel. Sometimes we can send remittances to our family in Cuba. Sometimes, like right now, we cannot. So there's always a layer of Cubans who live in South Florida who want to build ties, who want to travel and visit family, who don't support policies like the embargo. So I've been part of that. So these reflect demonstrations, letter campaigns, and that type of thing. Also, some of the images are of me working in different industries. In the sewing factories, I work pushing back planes here in Miami. My industrial work background too, I think, is part of what informs my practice in general.
Your understanding of work and of labor.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So in thinking about how this translates, it just feels like a very natural progression into your artwork. And we can look at an exhibition view. So in our initial meetings, we discussed how this was a body of work that had never really been shown before. We were just talking about some of the passport images I remembered seeing in some of our earlier studio visits. So perhaps you can talk a little bit more about how this exhibition in particular came together and became really so specific and personal.
Sure, yeah, I'd like to do that. So in 2012, I started to actually do projects in Cuba and here that relate to the theme of Cuba. So in 2014, I did a postcard project. Okay. I asked people, if you're traveling to Cuba, send me a postcard. I designed a postcard. They would take it with them when they went, and from Cuba, they would mail it to me. It was part of building community, building bridges. It's part of the background of this project. Then in 2019, I participated in the Havana Biennial. And the theme there was open studios. So I did a project in La Ceiba neighborhood where my mom lives, that used a lot of the materials.
Biennial
last year,
brochure here. Yeah.
And I used a lot of materials that I'm using in this exhibition, like, for example, visas, passport, entry permits. Right here is an image of my sister, my mom, and I on our very first trip back in 1979.
You all are just beautiful.
We look
I
alike,
just want to
right?
say yes. And I wish that I could have had that haircut that you had. My hair just doesn't do that. So cool. It just won't, it won't do the figure skater.
There's a famous, exactly, gymnast.
Yeah, yeah.
I forget her name now. My sister's haircut is. And
The
I think
Dorothy Hamill.
Dorothy Hamill look, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, we tried. We really did try.
Yes.
Yeah, so you had mentioned 1979. This is your first opportunity to go back to Cuba.
To build my own relationships with my culture, my family.
Yeah.
Because before that, it was all through my mom and my dad's experience. So that's really where my, also as an immigrant, identity is a really big question. So working through who you are, where you come from, is part of the process in my artistic practice. And with a lot of visits to Cuba, it's helped me to really engage in new ways in that way. This is a photograph of a really wonderful trip that one of the many trips, and almost my entire family is in that photograph. We traveled to outside of Havana to Viñales, and my mom and my uncles had to rent a yellow school bus to be able to gather everyone. And this photograph is the basis for one of the prints in the exhibition.
Yeah.
I use optics that my mom has been given as gifts.
Yeah.
She keeps them, in the last 41 years. They're part of the conversation and the narrative.
Yeah.
For example, these shells, which are snails, land snails, polimitas, they're endemic to Cuba. And that was one of the gifts many, many years ago. Now they're protected because, so you can't really have them anymore. Or
they're
them.
so brilliant.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're really quite, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. They're very colorful, and it's really specific to Cuba.
Yes.
So they're protected now. And but these are the shells that have been discarded on the shores.
Yeah, and yes. Yeah.
Are they edible?
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
They're just very beautiful. This is one of the objects that I've used among other objects.
Yeah, I'm going to show how it's like on this beautiful dominoes. So in the exhibition, there's this incredible dominoes table. These are the way that, this is a great image of the different images, all that you have taken, correct?
Yeah, I decided that because immigration and the Cuba experience is a traumatic experience, I decided I would sort of lighten it up with a domino game. And so I designed the table, made out of cardboard, and the game so that people, this was pre-COVID, so that people could actually play. And the domino set is based on the double nine set. Dominoes are played all over the Caribbean. And actually in most of the island in Cuba, it's double six, but only in Havana is double nine. So it has 55 pieces, it's more complex. Okay. Everyone in the Caribbean, Latin America, almost everyone plays dominoes. Haiti, Jamaica, Dominican Republic. So what I did is I used photographs of many, many visits to stand in for the numbers, the 7, the 6, and that way people can play at another time.
So it is an actual, it is an actual game. You can really sit down in normal times to be able to play this game. And this was something that was, not just a part of your family, but your culture, just like a means of escape. So it's an interesting parallel with these different images as a way of kind of folding and unfolding it together.
Yeah, it was the first time that I worked with resin. So thanks to some colleagues at the Laundromat Art Space, I was able to try them out, play around with them, and I think they came out pretty good because the resin makes it able for people to play, to throw them, and they're still going to survive the games, and hopefully in the future people will use them in that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, one of the things that I love so much about your exhibition is that these pieces are very, very beautifully made. Like, I think, like the dominoes, the pieces are really nice. The cardboard table is, super, just this really great industrial, like it's cardboard, but it's got a very solid, very smooth, clean, kind of polished look to it for a cardboard table.
I have to do a shout out to Groovin Graphics in Little Haiti because I designed it, domino tables have to be square. So I designed it, but they fabricated it. And I love their work. They use recyclable cardboard to make all kinds of things. So they were really, they were able to make this for me.
And it's also fantastic the way, I guess I should be pointing this way, but it's fantastic the way that it sits on these tile floors. So these were created to mimic like a linoleum tile floor in someone's kitchen, or, you know, or in a restaurant, or,
You know, there's a long history of tiles in Cuba, and actually a lot of people in Miami, they're known as Cuban tiles, but you know, the Spaniards brought the tiles to Cuba. So there's these old houses and public buildings with these beautiful, intricate tiles. And actually the design, Cuban tiles became very famous in the early 1900s. Their design was very different than the Spaniard designs, a lot more floral and colorful. So I thought, as a way to sort of have people get into a different mindset in the exhibition, I would design these tiles. So I used the back of the part of the design is the back of a Cuban passport. It has a really great flower, which I love. It's part of the Caribbean. And now if you kill me, I can't remember the name of the flower.
Yeah, I know.
I have it in my balcony.
Joy remembers. Yeah,
I have it in my balcony. And so yes, it's a way for people to come in and sort of be transported to a different mindset.
Yeah.
And I think it looks quite nice there. It's under the table.
It really creates this, and this is what we talked about. If we can look at the mural is so beautiful, and so that's the entry point into the exhibition. And you can talk about, yeah, this is, maybe you can speak about this. This is the mural that you painted on site during installation.
Yeah. So the title is Not So Far Away, No Tan Lejos. And so this mural and the exhibition is really sort of in between these two murals. This mural at the very beginning, and then at the end, the activism mural. And this was a result of many trips that I've taken to Cuba. And you fly over, you land in Miami. At American Airlines, they have a nice little video screen where you can check out you know, what's over the right wing, the left wing, the pilot. And when I first saw this, I thought, wow, you know, Havana is right beyond the horizon. So on the right, you have the Everglades, and then you have Homestead, but right beyond the horizon, from Key West is 90 miles, but on a train, on a plane trip is actually 47 minutes of flight. So we're so close, but
super close.
Yeah, but because of policy and different opinions, political opinions, we're so far apart.
Yeah.
So it's an attempt to have conversation about, you know, building bridges, having families communicate on a regular basis without obstacles. So that's where the idea of the murals as a way to, physically, we're very close.
Yeah. It's actually surprising because of the politics. It really does make it feel so far away and so unreachable.
Right.
Yet with something like this, it really is. It's interesting.
Other immigrants, Jamaica, Colombia, you know, they come back and forth from their native countries regularly, depending on their finances, of course, but you know, people have a home in their native country and they come back and forth. With Cuba, it becomes a little more problematic. And you know, there was a time where, you know, you couldn't fly every year. The flights many years ago, a flight that was 45 minutes cost $800. So you know, there's particularities about the Cuban experience and migration that makes it a little bit different than other immigrants from the Caribbean or Latin America. So it's really a struggle to be able to maintain ties that should be natural.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of what the exhibition is about.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts on like when you go back, because you are, and like when you went back for the biennial, you know, how different is it for you as a Cuban American? Because it's almost like you have a different, because it was so disconnected differently than 9 years you had to wait before you
Right.
could go back.
But ever since I've been traveling to Cuba since 1979 on a very regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a stranger there anymore. But at first
Yeah.
you have to build your own ties. I was reading an article by young Puerto Ricans who are repatriating right now, and how born in the Bronx or born in New York, and how visiting all the time Puerto Rico, but when you come, you have a different experience. So you have to sort of relearn or reinsert yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
so
Mhm.
for now, I do projects. I have friends in Santiago who are artists. I have friends in the mountains of Melo who are artists. Internet has made it very easy in the last few years to communicate. All my friends are on Facebook in Cuba.
Mhm.
My family is on Facebook. They use WhatsApp, so we communicate. Today, we can just text. When years ago, you couldn't even make a phone call.
Mhm.
That a phone call was $2 an hour, a minute. So things have changed a lot, and so a little bit it's about that. But I feel very comfortable there. Yeah, and I was supposed to celebrate my birthday there earlier this year in April. I still have the 2 tickets, and I'm waiting for
Yeah.
things to open up a little bit more so I can go back.
Yeah.
But I think people who are born or who grow up in the same place, you have your parents, you have your grandparents, all of your culture, you're fed your culture every day. But when you're uprooted, when there's been a cut, you have to relearn and reweave those experiences, cultural experiences and personal experiences. And that is traumatic. And it's also a lifetime experience.
Because I guess you're also sitting on, and if we want to look at the mural again in the back wall, this, as you mentioned earlier, it's a roller coaster ride that you're experiencing with your family in Cuba. If you're going back, I mean, this is a really interesting wall here because it's different periods in time. Some of it's very current, but then we all remember there's one about Elian, and so there's politics from the 90s, the 80s, till now.
This mural, the way that I painted it, it was inspired by actually the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of the places where there's been demonstrations around the country, there people leave back signs, writing. So I thought, and I've been involved in that also. So I thought, I took pictures of some places, and I thought, I'm gonna use this idea and then superimpose with real signs that I have and that I know people at different periods in my lifetime have talked about Cuba. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's like there is a very layered history in there to show that it's not just a problem that's now. It's not something you walk into now, but it is very complicated. And what it means for your generation, and the next generations and the previous generation, it's got all sorts of different kind of meanings and context to it. I also love that this wall is this kind of trompe l'oeil, like that there's actually, and you can't see it in photographs, but if you're able to visit the exhibition in person, there's, blue masking tapes actually being used, like actual paper is being used. So you do a kind of a mixture of paint and, it becomes like a mixed media wall to really show different voices, like as if you're acting as these different people and trying to communicate through them what they want to say.
Exactly, yes. I really wanted the exhibition to be sort of an experience from a particular viewpoint, which is mine and my family's, but to experience a different idea around this particular issue. And one of the challenges I think for me as an artist, being involved with social issues, is how to find a balance between the message and the aesthetic. So that's always a challenging issue for me. So it works in different ways in different exhibitions, but yeah. So, but I think it's pretty successful.
Yeah. I think one of the other elements that you added is the clothesline piece. Maybe you can speak a little bit about that, because that again is like another nod to activism, in a very peaceful, very beautiful, poetic manner. When I speak about the prints.
So the prints and transparencies, there's about 13 of them. I think in total. Not all of them are in the exhibition. I also printed some of them, not only on paper, but on bed sheets.
Mhm.
And in Havana, there's a whole history, the old part of Havana that has been recuperated and maintained for many years now. There's this whole art scene where folks hang art across from balconies. They're old Spanish style streets. So, and there's the director of Old Havana, Eusebio Leal, just recently died this year. And there was an outpouring in Havana of people putting their bed sheets as a sign of, of support for him and valuing his work. So I thought,
Leal was like a poet,
historian. He was a historian, a poet. I mean, he was just many, many things, but historian, poet, anthropologist, and he just really represented Cuban culture around the world and in Cuba. And he was for, maintaining the patrimony, the history, especially in the Spanish part of Havana, Old Havana. So he, restored buildings, schools, without moving people outside of their place. After buildings were restored, families would come back.
Oh, wow.
A very different approach to gentrification.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
But anyway, so I thought,
wait, what?
When I first, I wanted to place some of the works on the wall, but then I thought I wanted to sort of give a nod to Eusebio Leal. So actually talking to your team, we sort of thought, okay, we're not going to use the bed sheet, but we're going to hang the paper in this way with and this happens in other Latin American countries, but it's a very specific reference to Old Havana, to Eusebio Leal and Cuban culture at the same time.
There's so many, different and just kind of layers to it. It's like almost, so first you're looking at the idea of like drawing a photograph, like old school filmmaking, when you take, you're developing your image and then you hang it up to dry and then you're leaving it out. But also in that nod to those bed sheets, the way they kind of peacefully move, and they're very beautiful prints. They're very lush and very, just there's very textural. You get a real sense of the paper and the color on the paper. So it does have a lot of movement to it.
I was trained as a painter and a graphic designer, and printmaking was a big part of my forming as an artist, drawing from live models. And I think in these prints, you can see some of that painterly and that background in printmaking, even though they're digital prints and they're digital images.
They do feel, I do think that too. I think they definitely feel that way, the way that sometimes it kind of smudges or blurs over. And again, a lot of the images in here are passport photos, family photos, objects, just kind of remarking on things that are both, that are familial and very much cultural to Cuba. So, I'd say one of my questions is, what do you miss most? This was something what do you miss most about Cuba? And I can say that as we're, sipping our coffee, since you made me a very delicious Cuban coffee, which I had never known before till I moved here. And then it's just suddenly living in Miami, you have access to, you just learn these wonderful new traditions of things to
That's actually
to savor.
One of the beautiful things about living in Miami. You have many, many cultures. So it's interesting because I think one of the first experiences, I drink coffee, as you can see, and, sometimes I make it myself, or I'll go to a little cafeteria somewhere, and I always have to tell the person who's making them, make sure it's dark and sweet. That's how I like my coffee. And sometimes it doesn't quite come back that way, so I have to add more sugar. But one of my very first trips, I went to Old Havana with my mom and my aunt, and they're making coffee, so we're going to buy a coffee. So I tell the guy right away, dark and sweet. And he looks at me and he says, "Wait, you haven't tried my coffee yet." And I was shocked that it was just the darkness I needed and the sugar and the sweetness. And I thought afterwards, wow, this is very interesting. This is just a little example how there are things in your DNA or cultural things, habits that when you're an immigrant, you don't know where they come from. But they come from your DNA and from your culture. And when you're an immigrant, you don't know where they come from. So you have to, so it's a learning process, an experience. So whenever I go to Cuba, there are all kinds of things that happen. It's like, oh yeah, this is like me.
Yeah.
You know, the way people dress, the way people, their hands, the way they
Yeah.
move, the way they talk, you know, the music is loud, or, you know, there's just multiple things that just reaffirm who you are.
Yeah.
So every time I go, my identity is reaffirmed.
Yeah.
So it's always a pleasure for me to go.
That's so lovely. It's almost like, yeah, you can take a sip of coffee, or you can, you know, listen to some music, or they're just these little, or eat a pastelito, or have something that just kind of immediately can take you back to remembering such an important part of who you are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, Cuban Americans have a lot in common with Irish Americans too. So
No, I think
talking loud, hand gestures.
I think that all
yeah.
these conversations around immigration, I think are global conversations, you know, and
Mhm.
we approach them in different ways through our own identity and our own experiences, what their world experiences, their experiences that all immigrants face. So that's why it's sort of a topic that can engage a lot of different people.
It's been something that's, well, you know, for so many obvious reasons, it's something that you think about so much now, and then realizing that in one facet or another, every community or culture has faced something like that in some way or some time, and that now it's like there's so many experiences that if we're now able to speak about it more, that we can share and kind of learn from each other.
Sure.
Just, you know, because I was living in Mexico for a few years and was learning a lot about migrant experience from there. And, you know, so much I did not know. And then thinking about how that relates to now living here and learning so much more about the Cuban experience of people immigrating here, and also at various points in history and for various reasons.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a very powerful and beautiful way of connecting, especially through art. And so I'm really grateful for your exhibition, because I've learned a great deal. I really, really have. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for our conversation. If you have any questions or things that you would just kind of like to put in our comment section, we can always follow up with some things later. But we're so thrilled to have people join us today. Again, Rosa Naday Garmendia, Not So Far Away, No Tan Lejos, is on view through Sunday, October 25th. This Sunday, we will have a free family day, and where we're going to be doing the Papel Picado display, getting ready for Dia de los Muertos. And then again, my great thanks to the Moore Family Foundation for supporting this exhibition. We are so really greatly appreciative of that, and to our marketing team, Yvette Wasserman and Leo Sarmiento. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
you.